Welcome to the Visionary Spotlight, an interview series highlighting business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are visionaries in their fields. They're leading their industries with a track record of excellence, doing remarkable work. In these conversations, we learn a few of the key steps on each visionary's road to success, how they grew the business, reached their best customers, and what they've learned along the way. I'm Emily Hammel-Shaver of Lumos Communications, and today I am thrilled to be speaking with Chris Marshall, a writer, event producer, mental health advocate, and the founder of Samsbar in Austin, Texas. Samsbar is an alcohol-free bar that creates a space for connection, community, and zero-proof cocktails for people who choose not to drink, whether they're sober curious, sober sometimes, or in recovery. Chris, I think what you're doing is so important, and I'm so excited to hear more about it. Welcome to the Visionary Spotlight.
Thank you so much, Emily. Glad to be here today.
Oh my gosh, and I wish I was with you in Austin, but one day I think I'll get to visit and see it all in person there.
That's the hope, is that, whenever you're in Texas, you can always come down to Samsbar in Austin and have a good time.
Well, tell us more about it. Tell us more about what you do and what Samsbar and that good time is really about there.
So the way that I like to answer this question is to take you through like kind of a mental exercise of what it's like to come into Samsbar on a Friday night.
Love it.
So imagine you've flown in from wherever you're from, you come in, and it's 7 o'clock on a Friday night. And the first thing you notice when you walk into Samsbar is that it feels different than any other bar you've been to before. The first thing you notice is people are aware of your presence. When you walk in the door, people greet you. People say hello. Bartenders will wave at you as you walk in, which is very different than most bars that I've been in, because most bars that I've been in, they're usually too busy or too consumed with like whatever's going on to notice me. So the first thing that you'll notice is that you are noticed. The second thing you'll notice is that it sounds and looks like every bar that you've known and loved. Like if you close your eyes on a busy Friday night at Samsbar, it sounds like any bar in America. And it's great. I love to do that. I'll stand in the middle of the bar and I can just hear glasses clinking. I can hear conversation. I can hear someone like snort laughing because whatever joke their friend told them was hilarious. I can hear acoustic music. I can hear karaoke. Like it is this rich, immersive experience. And so you walk in, you're like, this is a good vibe. Then you walk up to the bar. You walk up to the bar, hand you a menu, and you look down at the menu and you see that there's all these alcohol-free drinks. There, people call them mocktails. I like the term zero-proof cocktails. There's all these drinks that taste great, that look great, they're reasonably priced. And then you see that there's beer and there's wine that's alcohol-free for you to consume. And you just realize that this is a space that's built for everyone. Most bars are not built with everyone in mind. They're built for drinkers.
Yeah.
And people who consume alcohol. And this space is built for everyone because everyone has periods where they're not drinking. Even if you drink every day, you sleep eventually, right? Like you have periods in your life when you're not consuming alcohol. So this is a space for everyone. And we just like to have conversations. We like to open up bottles of new products that just came out on the market and like to sample them all and try them out. Go back out on the patio. It's this beautiful, large backyard space with plenty of seating. It's a nice warm night in Austin because it's usually warm here at night. You can hear the passing of cars and conversation, and you just realize like, I've been here an hour and not once did I feel pressure to do anything other than be myself. And that is a Samsbar experience. That is the environment that we've engineered over the course of the 4 years that we've been in operation.
Wow. That sounds incredible. The fact that I just want to sit with that bodily experience of imagining going into that space, first of all, that like you could close your eyes and feel like you're in the hub of something wonderful, hearing those sensory, the noises of people having a good time, while having an experience that makes you feel connected to others. You feel seen when you walk into the room. You don't feel pressured. I know from my experience in the past, I mostly don't drink in my life for the last year and a half, but in the past, my bar experiences were like, okay, when am I going to leave? I should stop drinking at a certain time. It's like not having those thoughts going on in the back of your mind, just being present to whatever amazing thing is there. Maybe it's people. I know you've also been really intentional about creating a lot of fun events that are typically like things you wouldn't necessarily think of as alcohol-free events, like karaoke, but people like to sing. Why can't you sing without drinking? Like you've done that really intentionally to create that feeling and that experience of being a person in the world and alive, but without, sans alcohol.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Wow. Well, tell me a bit about your decision to create an environment like that. I know that you were a mental health licensed counselor for over 8 years. And in your professional experience, you noticed that after treatment, it was really hard for people to find a social space where they could go and not drink that wasn't work or home. And in your personal experience, you noticed something similarly, that the ability to connect with people without alcohol was something that was really hard to find in the world. So I know those were drivers for you, but also entrepreneurship is a big leap. So what was all of that like for you?
You're exactly right. Those two things are true. I had this professional experience. I also had this personal experience. I got sober when I was 23 years old. But the word that I clued in on that you just said, decision, it absolutely is a decision to continue to create and engineer environments that are wired and designed for connection. For me, what gets me up every morning, it gets me excited, is the fact that this is not about alcohol. I truly believe that we are so hungry for connection, for not just scrolling on Instagram, not just liking someone's TikTok, not just Zoom, which super grateful for Zoom, but at the same time, like it doesn't beat heart-to-heart connections in person.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time that the top seller at Samsbar, the product that we are really selling is connection.
Yeah.
It's being seen for who you are. It's going into a space and really being known. When you go to a coffee shop, you're going to a coffee shop to meet someone you already know. I've never seen people at a coffee shop like, hey, nice to meet you. Like that's not really how it works in coffee shops, right? That's a bar kind of thing, right? So coffee shops really don't do that, and bars are a place where you may meet someone, but it's really surface. There's like all this conversation about like, what do you do, where you're from, what's your sign, all these things that are great, but they don't really get to the heart of who you are. When you remove alcohol from the situation, what you're able to do is to say, how are you doing? How are you really doing?
Yeah.
That's a question you would never hear in a bar. First of all, it would be too loud. You couldn't hear it.
Yeah,
So,
you'd be screaming that question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you're not, and the environment is so overstimulating that you can't really answer that question in a cogent way. So our space is a little more quiet and still. It's still lively, so that's all this vibrancy. Yes, people are still singing karaoke off key, but there's still space for you to kind of move away from that and have conversation.
Yeah, that's really interesting because so inherent in the experience of coming to Samsbar is you're coming to a place not to drink. And so inherent in that experience is already a much deeper way that you're showing up. And, you know, the question isn't you come here often. Instead, it's like, why are you here? Like it's already asking a question on a much deeper level. So even probably the easy go-to question is still something that gets to something much more personal about somebody's life, their values, their experiences, their hardships, whatever it is. Yeah, that's really interesting. I read that you make really intentional decisions about things like the volume of the music. And when you bring in a musician, you say, hey, like it's going to be, the speakers are going to be at a conversational level. So even the partners you're working with are on board with this mission.
Yeah. I tell musicians, performers, there's always obviously exceptions, right? Like if you're a comedian, I'm not going to say just whisper your jokes. That's not going to work. But what I do say is like, you are part of a much larger system. You're part of a system that is trying to create this connection. And to your point, Emily, people do come because they are deciding not to drink or they're drinking less, but they stay and they keep coming back for the connection piece.
Yeah.
So I tell musicians, like, this is the scene that you're setting. You're setting a scene that is all about connecting with other people. And you're a very instrumental part of that, but you are not the main attraction. The main attraction is for adults to talk to adults and adults to learn to listen to each other.
Yeah. Wow. So I live in a relatively small town outside of the Philadelphia area, and I'm not somebody that goes out a ton anyway, but when I first discovered Samsbar earlier this year, I just felt this yearning for something like that near me, because I like live music. I like karaoke. I like seeing comedians. I like connecting with new people that I wouldn't normally meet. And it was like, that feels like it's something that's really missing, at least from where I live, and in my social life. So I like that you have this really social, it's like that's the cog, that's the main cog. It's that everything is sort of built around. It's that connection. Like you said, that's really the product you're selling.
Absolutely.
Well, so let's talk about the business a little bit. So you started Samsbar, I read, with $200. You tried crowdfunding and you got like $36. So you started with this pop-up, with this vision of creating a safe, sober, and inclusive space. But you'd also been researching sober bars for a while. And here in the US, you've learned that most of them fail. So obviously, Samsbar has not failed. What were some of the meaningful actions that you took to grow the business?
Yeah. So first of all, your research is impeccable. I must say, I'm enjoying this immensely, because it's like, usually it's the typical questions that people always ask, like, so why'd you start Samsbar? Like, I love that you're already equipped with all of this knowledge. It's great. I love it, because it's allowing me to take off from a different point each time. Like, I love this. This is great. So I just want to acknowledge that in the moment, like, your questions, fantastic. So early steps and early actions that I took. The first thing I did was I researched a lot of failure. I believe failure is the greatest teacher.
Yeah.
And it's usually like free, especially when it's other people's failures. It's expensive when it's yours, but other people's failures, free education. And so what I did was I went to all the people that I could find when I Googled like sober bar United States, and found every venture that had closed or didn't get funded, or whatever the case was. And I called them. I just called them. I said, hey, I know your business just closed. Would you like to have a conversation about that? And I got a lot of no's, but I got a few yeses. And the yeses that I did get were very helpful, because they taught me what not to do. The first thing that I learned was you got to scale this thing up. Like you can't just find a property, take out a 5-year lease, build out, open up, and people are going to get it, especially not in 2017. Now, you have to take into account there have been no successful iterations of this before. So I was much more conservative than people maybe at the end of 2021, going into 2022. I think this is a different world, but you have to be mindful. Like this was in 2017 when I started my pop-ups, there was no model that worked. So yeah, I learned that, you can't just build a space and it just happened. And so I was like, okay, not going to do that. And the other thing that I understood was that a lot of people that got into this kind of industry were in for their own personal interest, right? Like they didn't have any business or restaurant management experience. They were just really passionate about providing a space that didn't serve alcohol, which is not wrong. I mean, I think that having passion and understanding your why is essential in starting up anything, remembering your why. I just learned from those people that you got to have more education and experience. It can't just be passion alone. Can't build it on love alone, right? There's got to be something there. So I tried to think about, okay, what's possible for me to do with my limited skill set and business acumen, plus where is the public and where's the market here? And I looked at Austin and I saw that Austin had, a thriving recovery community, but people who were sober curious, maybe, because that term was just a thing. Right now, I say sober curious, everyone knows what that means. But I had just read Ruby Warrington's book, Sober Curious, and it was just becoming a thing. So that's why I started as a pop-up, because I knew that not only did it make sense from a financial perspective, right? Like I didn't have any investors. I only raised $36. Like there wasn't money available. And honestly, I don't think I've said this before, but like my idea was that I was never going to go into debt for this dream. If it was good and it was a good idea, and I felt that it was, then it would pay for itself. I just was like, I'm not going to take out a loan. I mean, I think we could have, found some initial seed funding, but I just believed this is going to work. It's going to work because it's good and it's going to grow organically. I'm not going to infuse cash into something for maybe the chance that it works. If this fails, I'm out $200. I mean, that's money, but it's not 2 million.
Right.
So I was just like, okay, gonna see how this works. I took into consideration that the market just wasn't there yet. People didn't really get what it was, which was perfect. So I started off, just with research. And then also, just to finish up the answer, this fundamental belief, which changed my life. And it was to never let the perfect get in the way of the good. The perfect would have been to wait until I had investors, wait until I had, several, proof of concepts under my belt before I even opened my Instagram account. The perfect would have been to have a perfectly, built menu, to go to bartending school, to get an MBA, like all those things would have been the perfect.
Yeah.
But that perfect would have taken me I would be just now getting to a place where I would be perfectly positioned to open up the business that I wanted.
Right.
I did the good. The good was, well, and I can throw a party. I can throw a party. So I threw a party. And I managed a very small budget. And I knew how to do that because I'm an adult. And so that's how it started for me. It started very incrementally, and it grew over time with my ability to move through the business world. Like as I was gaining bartending skills, as I was gaining business skills, Samsbar was growing. So we've grown up together instead of me being a fully grown up business person and bar manager, we've scaled together.
Wow. That's so interesting. I think there are two things I want to touch on there. And the first is you did a lot of really interesting, intelligent things, but one is you didn't let the perfectionism get in the way of what you were doing and therefore never begin. You'd just be finishing your MBA now, right? Like, so it's like option one is make it perfect, but maybe don't even end up starting it because you'll never be perfect. And option two that I think I think it's glorified a lot in entrepreneurship is going big, going all in, getting the investors, making it huge, even if there might not be a market for it, even if you're going to end up in debt. And like, that's how you flame out. And instead you did the very difficult thing of walking the middle line, moving slowly. Like, I'm sure probably some days it felt like it was painfully slowly. But like, that's actually a lot like sobriety. It's like one day at a time. It's that idea. Gosh, yeah, I think that's something people could stand to hear a little more about in entrepreneurship, that you have to keep moving forward and you have to keep learning. It's so interesting to me also that you researched failure, because I think a lot of people really avoid thinking about the ways things could go badly because they don't want to imagine things going badly for themselves. But you really, gosh, it sounds hard. It sounds hard what you did. And it, yeah, does that resonate?
Yeah, like it when you say it, when I hear it back, I'm like, yeah, that's not the best, easiest, most comfortable way, but it worked for me. And to your point about sobriety, like, I learned how to stay sober by watching other people's failures and listening to them, and say, when they said, wow, I tried to go out and live this way and it didn't work, or I tried to do this, or I tried to get into I took on too much early on in sobriety, and I it didn't work for me. So I'm like, okay, that's a lesson. Don't do that. So that was something that I had been doing for 10 years before I even opened up Samsbar, was like really being a student of failure and accepting that failure is a great teacher, even my own, especially my own failures. But other people's failures are really interesting. And if people will open up and talk to you about it, you can learn so much from them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the flip side too is, I don't want to make it sound horrible, because there's also something that's really amazing and nurturing and safe about taking things slowly, taking things at the pace that you need to take them, doing things like not taking on debt because that wasn't what you wanted to do. And so there's something so very empowering as well about moving at the pace that's right for you and what you're building. And that's how I've grown my business, very organically, very slowly. Some days it feels really slowly, but it's like, that's what feels safe. And I love my life, and that's good. That was right for me. So it sounds like you also grew the business in the way that was right for you, your family, and Austin, and the business.
And a career that I love. That's the other part of this too. It's like, I actually loved being a counselor.
Yeah.
Like, it was I was really good at it. And I really loved working the job that I did. It was a profession, but it wasn't a passion. And what I realized is that what I loved about being a counselor, what I loved about going into work every day and helping people, was the connection. That was the passion.
Yeah.
So I had to let go of the profession to get to the passion.
Yeah. Well, and what's cool is, and this leads into my next question, is you can really see your love of counseling, of being a great counselor. You can really see that in just talking with you, but also in your Instagram. I think that's one of the things that drew me most to your account, was like, here's somebody who's really taking care of his community, himself. He's there for others who might be going through something hard. You just share lots of like it's not the polls. I don't know what the feature is on Instagram where you're in essence saying like, how are you feeling today? Or like, what's something you're proud of, or what's something that was hard for you? Like, you really show up in a way that your background is very much like seen and felt in a really positive way. Yeah, which makes me wonder. So at this stage, what have you found works best for you to reach your customers now?
Great question. So, what you're talking about is like so today's Thursday. So I gotta get my questions in. So I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I realized that I was at like 13K followers on Instagram and, another 7 on whatever, Facebook. And I'm just like, I know that that's not a huge follower count for a lot of, major, people. But for me, I was like, I don't even know all these people. And I think the object is not to know everyone, but it's just like, for me, someone who cares about connection and craves connection, I was like, I don't know any of these people. I truly believe that everyone that comes to an event at Samsbar, either, in Austin or on tour that we're on, anyone that goes to any of my virtual events, like, you are not a customer, you are an investor in my dream.
Wow. Yeah.
And I need to know who you are. I want to know who you are. I want to know if you're having a good day. I want to know one thing that you're proud of today. I want to know something that you're ashamed of. I want to know who you are as a person.
Yeah.
That's just important to me. Like, I literally answer every single reply, and sometimes it's hundreds. And I will spend all Thursday night, put the kids to bed, turn on Sports Center, and I will just answer everyone mindfully and intentionally, because I want to know every person that is invested in this idea that I had.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I've never spent a dime in marketing. I haven't spent a penny. I've done 0 Instagram ads. I've done 0 Facebook. I did one Facebook ad just to see what it felt like. And I got nothing. I was like, engagement was like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I believe that getting to know people, and maybe I could have grown faster. I'm not saying that this is true for everyone. Results will definitely vary. But for me, I knew that the probability of Samsbar working as a concept, again, in 2017, when there was no other kind of iteration of this in Texas, like, it had to work with people pulling for it, rooting for it. It had to have a community behind it, a community that would be okay with me popping up in the backyard of a hair salon, which is where my longest kind of pop-up stint was, in this like corporate backyard. And I used folding tables, and it wasn't the best. I mean, if it would rain, we had to cancel. Like, it was not the ideal. It wasn't the perfect, but it was good. And people got what I was doing. And they were like, you know what? This isn't the best, but there's something about this experience that's different than any other experience I've had anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't care how many followers I have on Instagram. I care about the people that do choose to follow me, knowing that they are loved and that they're cared for.
Yeah.
It will always be people over profits for me. Always.
Yeah. Wow. So cool that you've never spent anything on, like, right. I'm sure if somebody comes to an event and they think, oh my gosh, next time I'm bringing 3 friends because this was so amazing. Yeah.
That's the advertisement. It is evangelizing. That is the thing, because that has a staying power that no Instagram ad could ever give you. Right? That a friend telling you, I went to this thing, I had this experience, and you have to be a part of this. You have to. Oh my gosh, is Samsbar coming to your town on the tour? You have to go. I love when people tag people in other cities, like, they're coming to Philadelphia, they're coming to Anchorage, you gotta go, because it gives that person the confidence to do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as soon as you announce that Philly date, which I won't say right now because I know you're probably still
I
waiting
mean,
to...
we could make it breaking news right here. I mean, if you're into that, like, you know, we're
Go
gonna
for
do that. Um,
it.
yeah, maybe at the end of our time we can.
That's perfect. Yeah, yeah, because
Little teaser there.
yeah, perfect. So tell me more about your priorities for building a team and a culture there. What is the size of your team, and what, how do you brief people when they're coming to be part of Samsbar, or even a partner that you're working with for a pop-up, or a speaker you're bringing in? What are you sharing with them that helps them understand what you're about there?
Yeah, so I think that question kind of speaks to the culture that we've created, the work culture, and I just have to be honest about where we are. So prior to COVID, we had 6 bartenders, and they were part-time, and it was great. And we had to let a lot of them go, and sadly, not many of them have been able to come back. Mostly because they took up jobs elsewhere. They moved out of the state, and so yeah, we had a great team, and now it's just me and 2 other bartenders. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with the fact that we've had to contract a little bit, because I know that as long as we are teaching the values of safety, inclusion, and remaining focused on the people that we're serving, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
This space and this culture, behind the bar, will always be about safety. We always want to make sure people are safe physically in their body, but they're also safe mentally. I ask everyone that works for me how they're really doing today. And I make sure that everyone is paid a wage that supports a lifestyle that is healthy.
Wow.
There's more than just a living wage is a very cruel thing to pay someone.
Yeah.
Very cool thing. So I pay people, and that's also why I don't have a huge staff, because if I would pay everyone minimum wage, which is ridiculous here in Texas, like the system for servers, it's just horrible. But even if I paid them a living wage, it still wouldn't be enough. So I'd rather have 2 people that I'm paying really well. But no matter who you are, no matter if you're admin, if you're serving people, it's always about safety. It's always about inclusion. It's always about everyone feeling included, not just based on race, gender presentation, national status, all of that. We also really talk about, the ability to pay. And so when you come into Samsbar, I make sure that there's items on the menu that are $3, and I have a $15 drink.
Wow.
But if you just want a bottle of water, we got you. We got you. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the night. I just believe, like, so many of the things that we offer folks are not truly inclusive in that way. We don't think about people who can't pay. Yes, you do have a business to run. Yes, you do have investors, maybe, in some instances. I don't, but people do. Yes, I get you have to make money, but if you can't offer your product at an affordable price, then no one else can enjoy it. Only a certain amount of people can enjoy it. And what I've learned is that people that are able to get that $3 drink, those are the evangelizers. Those are the ones that invite friends. Those friends spend money and invite friends. Those friends show up to sober karaoke night. So I mean, I just think that, having a safe, inclusive, and people-centered work culture helps to move Samsbar along in the way that I want it to grow.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps when you said, like, you make sure there's also a $3 option, because that speaks to all of that. It's safety, it's inclusion, like, wow. Well, and the fact that you've thought about it from, like, the human perspective and not the business perspective. Like, well, let's just tick the boxes and make sure the menu has from $3 to $15. It's you're thinking about the person's experience who's walking into a bar with their friends and they might not have $5 that night, and they're still part of the experience and they're seen and they're welcomed. So
oh yeah. I mean, it's just not going to happen on my watch. I'm just not going to let someone feel inferior because they can't afford a drink. Like that's just not going to happen. I know that other iterations of alcohol-free bars have pretty pricey drinks. I think that does speak to, I think there's a point to that, right? Like people are willing to pay the same or more. There's a lot of science around that, a lot of statistics around that rather, that say that people will pay the same or more for non-alcoholic drinks. But again, I'm selling connection. That's the main product on our menu. The drinks are great, but they are a side character to the main character of connection.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. What's something that you wish you had learned sooner as an entrepreneur?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting on this question. Rest.
Oh yeah. Say more about that.
Yeah. So because this is a passion, I want to give everything that I can to it. I can talk about Samsbar and do most days for 8 hours straight. I can get on a plane, go to LA, throw an event, sleep in a crappy Airbnb because I'm passionate about this concept. I'm passionate about connecting people to each other. With passion can come burnout because you're not listening to the part of yourself that needs rest. And I was doing that prior to the pandemic. I was on tour, the 2019 tour, I did 10 cities, plus running my own business, right? Like I have a bar to manage and run on its own as a full-time job. Now I'm going to take this concept, I'm going to fly across the country. In 2 weeks time, I went from like an event in Anchorage, Alaska, and then Manhattan. Like I was doing a lot. And what I realized was that I need to practice more rest. And everything that I want to achieve is on the other side of rest. I used to think of rest as getting in the way of what I wanted. Like, oh, well, if I just stay up another 3 hours, I can have the thing. I can get more done. I can reach out to more beverage sponsors about whatever. And what I've learned is like, no, I'm much more effective when I rest. And so I listen to my body. And when it's time to lay down and take a rest, and it doesn't always mean that I do less. It's that I put rest before it. In January for the tour, we're going to 4 different cities in a month. Every Saturday, a new city. So it's gonna be nuts, right? Same thing with July. Dry July, we're gonna go boom, 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 boom across the country. I will find moments of rest, and I will say no, and I will make sure that like I'm doing now, like the rest of today is all about rest. I will just hang out. I will spend time just in silence and watching TikToks for a minute, and then I will probably take a nap and go lay down. Like rest is so important. So that's something I wish I would have learned earlier. Hustle culture lies and says that if you just work a little bit harder, if you just work a little bit longer, especially not having any money and any experience, I felt this insecurity to push myself even harder because I had to prove. Now I got to prove. Now I've said this. I've said that it's important, that this concept is powerful and blah blah blah. Now I got to go prove it out.
Right. And
no, I don't. I can go eat a meal. I can spend Saturdays with my family watching a movie. I don't have to work all the time.
Yeah. Well, and like you said as well, you're more effective when you do rest. So it's a win-win. That's so important. piggybacking on that, the next question is, what are your favorite non-negotiable ingredients for living a good life? Sounds like rest is on that list.
Yeah, so I have three.
Okay.
And I also need to be honest here. It's not like I've had this for like 15 years. Like this is like relatively new. Thanks to the pandemic, I now can answer this question. Before I would have been like, I don't know. But the pandemic enabled me it forced me to stop. And I closed the bar for a whole year. So from April of 2020 to April of 2021, the bar was closed. Obviously the tour, which was a 15-city tour in 2020, ground to a halt. So I literally had all the time in the world. And what I learned is that three things are non-negotiable in my life: rest, running, and writing.
Bonus points for the alliteration.
I was gonna say, I didn't realize that until just now. Like, that's the writer in me. That's the writer. Just naturally just roll that off. But no, I mean, I think that running has helped me to move my body. And that's, again, never ran a mile before the pandemic.
Wow.
But running became the only way we could get out. Like, like it literally, like early in the morning, people were out walking, and I just discovered running was like not what I thought it was. And it does, like, I'm still not a fan of it. Like, I don't love to run, but I love that 20 seconds, and it's getting longer every month. Like I get 21 seconds or 22 seconds, but there's like that small window of time where I'm not thinking anything and I'm just completely like into my body. And it is amazing to listen to my body work. I've never needed to repair this body. It has carried me all of these miles, all these experiences, all these memories. Like, your body is an amazing instrument. And so that's what running taught me. And then writing, because we've already covered rest a little bit, but writing. I've always been a writer. I've been writing since I was 2 years old. I invented my own scribble language. Like, writing is something that's really important to me, but I had really been neglecting it because of my business. So I started writing again. And that's where a lot of my Instagram posts, people like, oh, your Instagram posts are really, they're not what I would expect from a business. You're putting poetry on there, and that's got nothing to do with your, I was like, but it's me.
Yeah.
It's me. And I love to write, and I love to write about growth and healing and changing. And yeah, so I'm going to post it on there because that is my brand identity, being your true authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah. I listened to your interview with Ruby Warrington on her Sober Curious podcast, which is a great interview. And I will link that because it's a fantastic conversation.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had said that sharing stories is something you've always done. And that through line was so apparent in that interview, because you talk about in high school, journalism being something that you always excelled at. And then as a counselor, a lot of that was making space for stories, enabling others to share their own. At Samsbar, you've created a space for that as well. That's the root of what you're doing there, is that connection. And you do a lot of speaking as well. And I happen to know you're working on a memoir. And so I just think that's a very, very powerful through line. And I'm curious to see what Chris Marshall, how he will continue to do that, your next 50 years on the planet, because I think you've got a lot in you.
I hope this running pays off and I have another 50 years in me. I would love that. I just believe that story, and telling your story and listening to stories.
Yeah.
There's just something very like ancient about that. Like the ability to like hear someone else, their breath forming words, forming ideas, there's something super special about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, tell us what's next for you and what you're really excited about.
Oh my gosh. So keep in mind that rest is important. Um, Part of what keeps me going is just remaining on the cusp of what's known. Um, I am excited by new ideas. I think that yes, I'm really, first of all, I'm surprised that I've been doing Samsbar this long. Like I am surprised. I usually get like excited. Oh, there's another idea, and I'll chase that idea. Like it has been incredible that I've stuck with it this long. It's you know, same way with sobriety. Like I didn't think I was gonna stay sober this long, and it just becomes the way things are. But I love new ideas, and I challenge myself to do something divergent than what everyone else is doing. Like that's, as a kid, that was problematic, right? If you listen to Ruby's podcast, that's problematic. But what I've learned since that podcast is that very divergence, that very part of me that craved connection, that saw the world the way that I did, is also the brain that is thinking differently about anything that comes in my purview. Anything that I see and take in this world, I naturally look for how I can make it different. And that's a good thing. And so I'm really excited about a couple of projects I have. Of course, my memoir, super excited about. I've been writing this thing for a while. And I think I just got it to kind of the place that I wanted to get it. So I'm excited about that. Really excited about the Samsbar National Tour coming up next year. Working out funding on that. So I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like, but I do know that it's going to happen. And I'm super excited about that. But what I'm most excited about, what I have not talked about on any podcast yet, this is an exclusive, Emily. I am launching an app in 2022 called Mock Spots. And Mock Spots will be the app for you to find a great drink anywhere in the world.
I love this.
Yeah. I just believe there won't be a Samsbar in every city for another 15 years. And so to accelerate the rate at which we have options, you need to be able to go on your phone, click on the app, search your area, and find a good drink. This will change the way that we think about non-alcoholic drinks. It will change the rate at which you can find them. I am ripping directly from the vegan movement, and this is how the vegan movement grew, right? It came from consumers demanding more plant-based products.
Yeah.
And the more consumers asked for it, the better products got and the more readily available they were.
Yes.
And so that is my blueprint. And I learn from success on this one. They are doing it right. And we can do the same thing with alcohol-free beverages. And so that's the plan. That's the pitch. Mock Spots. And so it'll be kind of a community generated database where you can find a drink, or if you're out in public and you come across one, because I've done that several times. I'm like, I didn't know this restaurant served alcohol-free drinks. You'll snap a picture of the drink, you'll give it a rating, and then that'll be added to the database so that you can now be a part of this community that is helping other people find great non-alcoholic beverages.
I love that so much. I'm so glad you're on the planet, Chris.
Me too. It's a good planet. It's a good planet.
It's a good planet, good ride. Yeah. Well, finally, tell us where people can find you, follow you. Where do you hang out? And I'll make sure those are linked.
Well, in about an hour, I'll be hiking, and then I'll probably take a nap. Like I said, just TikTok, maybe a little hike, nap. That's where people can find me today. But if you want to find me on the internet, you can find me on my website, thesamsbar.com, or now mockspots.com. Feel free to give both a follow on Instagram. Mock Spots is just Mock Spots. And I've never said that out loud this much. That's fun. That's fun to say. I've never said it out loud to anyone other than my wife, maybe. My mom. This is weird. So find me on Mockspots, and then Samsbar, the original, is Sans_bar on Instagram. Facebook, same way, just Samsbar. I also own my own Samsbar Academy, which helps people create their own non-alcoholic businesses, bottle shops, community groups, all that jazz, and of course, alcohol-free spaces. So you can go on my website and purchase a Samsbar Academy membership, and it's 10 weeks of business know-how, things that I've learned. We bring in experts, we talk about great drinks. And so there's a lot to learn about this business and this industry that did not exist before 2017.
And I will say that's a very generously priced offering on your website as well. So this is not an $8,000 course. Yeah.
For now. Like, again, I want to make it accessible, and I do have scholarships. Thank you for reminding me. I do have scholarships for the Academy.
Cool.
So if people can afford the full price, I want to give someone that same opportunity. I want to cut that price in half, so you spend exactly what I spent on starting Samsbar.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your insight, your light with us. You're so inspiring, and I've really appreciated your time. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been, again, questions were fantastic. I enjoyed this so much and cannot wait to listen to this back.
That's a good feeling when you finished a conversation and you think, okay, I'd like to hear that one again, rather than like, oh, what did I say? Well, to stay in touch with Chris and Samsbar, I will link those below. And to be the first to see future visionary spotlights, you can also click those links below. So thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time.